Okay, we're live. Jennifer, take it away, our MC for today.
I guess I'm going to say, hey guys, I'm in charge today. We have myself, Jennifer Howard, we have Zach New and Rylan Warner, and we're going to be talking to you about some immigration updates. So to get started, just a fun thing that the American Immigration Lawyers Association, AILA for short, did these last couple of weeks. We had our National Day of Action on, I believe it was April 27th, and we were still meeting with some of the delegation members until just this week due to scheduling issues. But basically, AILA's National Day of Action is something that happens every April where chapters all over the country meet with their senators and representatives in U.S. Congress and lobby for immigration reform bills and just immigration reform policies as well. And so that was ongoing. We just did our last meeting with Senator Bennett's office this week. And I just wanted to go over some of the things that we are lobbying for. So one of the things is creating an independent immigration court. There is a bill out there right now in Congress called HR 6577. It's the Real Courts Rule of Law Act of 2022. And it really is focusing on moving the immigration courts to a more independent system. So right now, the immigration court is an administrative court, and the judges are employed under the Department of Justice, and oftentimes are limited to the decisions of the Attorney General, who can assign cases to themselves and issue decisions on those cases, which drastically changes immigration laws on the turn of a dime. This happens no matter who is in office, Republican, Democrat, Independent. I've had it, I had a hearing once under the last administration where I was preparing. We thought it was a great case, and 4 days before the hearing, the Attorney General assigned matter of AB, or, he had already assigned it, but he issued a decision on matter of AB, and it totally ruined our case. So obviously, the politicizing of the courts has increased the immigration backlog, eroded public trust and confidence in the courts, eroded efficiency, and, caused major problems for people who have really good, for example, asylum cases, and they're subject to, sways of political parties in both ways. And so I know we have a lot of clients that have been waiting like years and years and years for their hearings. And so part of what this bill would do is try to create a more efficient and fair court of law for the immigration process and try to reduce the backlog. So right now, about 10 to 20 years is common for an immigration case to make it from the charging document, which is called a notice to appear, to their final hearing, their merits hearing. I know I've personally also had clients in immigration court proceedings for upwards of 25 to 30 years. And a lot of these people, no criminal records, U.S. citizen relatives, authorized to work, employed in critical care jobs such as healthcare, hospice work, that are experiencing labor shortages. And so, that's one thing that we're really pushing for, that we talked to the senators and the representatives from Colorado that are in DC about. The bill would also give resources and funding for them to operate independently. And there's also a focus on ensuring access to legal representation. So unlike in a criminal court, for those who don't know, in criminal proceedings, you're entitled to an attorney. And if you can't afford one, the state will appoint one to you. In immigration court, you're not entitled to one. And a lot of research has shown that people who are represented by an attorney in immigration court have a much higher chance of winning than people who do not, especially in asylum cases. So that was one of the focuses of National Day of Action. Another was labor shortages. And so we talked about the fact that there is no visa category, worker visa category, and Zach can probably speak to this, for year-round jobs like there is for seasonal workers. And so people like food services workers, custodial workers, dairy farmers, there's no category for them without a college degree. And that is, from research, the number one gap that's missing in immigration right now. And so a lot of businesses, small and large, just can't find workers to fill positions. There's always like for hire signs hanging out anytime you go anywhere now. And so we talked to the Colorado delegation about how Colorado is in a unique position with all of these industries we have here: ski, tourism, hospitality, agriculture, dairy farming, hospitals, education. I mean, the list goes on. And, of course, border security and the border wall comes up with some of the the congressman. And of course, we touched on that and how, there already are background checks and vetting in place. I think, obviously we all want security, right? So those were just a couple of the topics. Other things we talked about were Title 42, which is a big issue this week because Congress may be voting on that. It deals with border security. It was enacted by the Department of, I believe, Health during the last administration. Supposedly as a COVID measure, even though the CDC has come out and said that it really has nothing to do with COVID. Really all it does is send people, to Mexico who have fair asylum claims. And so it's really having a poor impact on asylum seekers. And it's really hurting the fair treatment of Black and Brown asylum seekers in particular. So, we applauded in our meetings, what's been doing for Ukrainians, what's been done for Ukrainians here lately. But, Afghan and other asylum seekers, people from Central America just haven't been treated the same. Yeah, I could talk about this forever. We did talk about it to the congressman for like 3 weeks. So, and we did a lot of preparation, but it is a fun thing that your immigration representatives are doing. And of course, AILA Colorado actually has a legislative and advocacy committee, and most states do. And we meet with the delegations on a regular basis, but this is just a big push every year. So.
Yeah, that's a wild amount of topics there. I think the one that stuck out to me the most, just because in news lately, there has been a lot of talk of Supreme Court justice cases and how those have been shaped by recent presidencies. And so the similarity between how immigration law can be shaped differently from presidency to presidency and how quickly that can change. Obviously, we're seeing a reflection of that in the Supreme Court now, but it doesn't change as quickly in the Supreme Court as it can in immigration law, which is showing exactly why we need to make it more of an independent part of our government so that we're not changing every 4 years, every 8 years. So I do hope that something like that happens. And I totally agree about we do need more routes for positions that are longer than just a year for people that don't have college degrees. Zach, did you have anything you wanted to add about that?
A big one there is the trucking industry. It's had a huge labor shortage for a really, really long time. And there's basically nothing you can do on the immigration front. So, Jennifer hit it right on the head. There's a huge need there. There's not a solution in current immigration law. It needs to be fixed.
One of our committee members for the legislative committee, she has been harping on this for years, I think going on 20 or 30 years, is the registry system. And so, in the past, more than once, they have changed. If you've been here for a certain amount of time, you can actually apply for permanent residence through this registry process, which is why on the Form I-45, you have that application to adjust status or register permanent residence. So the form's there. The language is actually already written in prior bills, and they would just have to update the registry date to, 2001 or like whatever. So that would be one solution that would be, we keep pitching as like an easy fix and testing it out potentially with like DACA recipients just to see what public reaction would be, but we'll see if that ever happens. I think another fix would be focusing on reducing backlogs, because as people are, losing work authorization or unable to get their employment-based petitions through quickly. So we did talk a lot about backlogs and just, the millions of cases that are just like outside the normal processing times right now. I like to put normal in quotes because is it not? I don't know.
It is absurd.
Yeah. On that, I think we just heard from the director of USCIS that of like about 8.5 million cases, they have 5.6 million that are outside of their normal processing times, which is a number that they just make up anyways. So,
well, yeah, like with just the provisional unlawful presence waiver, I would say maybe a year ago, it was at 5 to 7 months on average for processing. So we used to tell people 6 months or so. And now I just checked this morning, it's at 26 to 34 months. So to go from 6 months to possibly 3 years on a waiver application is just insane.
Well, I do want to. I saw that we got a comment, and I know we usually save comments for later, but I saw that this person is just asking, do we handle adjustment of status cases? If yes, how may they contact us? And I'm just gonna say real quick, yes, we do, and I'm gonna send the link to how to schedule an appointment with us via our online scheduling program, just in case Delani can't wait around for us to get through our stories. Just gonna jump in to give her that answer real quick. So, Zach, do you want to go next, or should I?
No, I'll go next. I think I have a good transition into mine.
Mhm.
So as we were just talking about, there's massive backlogs right now. Things are taking forever. One of the biggest things that is causing a lot of harm to a lot of people is work authorization. I used to say a couple of years ago, um, expect like 3 to 5 months, maybe 6 months for an employment authorization document to be processed. We know that they take about 12 minutes of agency time, so they're not hugely burdensome on the USCIS to actually adjudicate them. Those numbers have increased a lot. So from when I was saying about 3 to 5 months, it increased to an average of about 7 months during COVID, and now we're estimated about 20 months for you to get your employment authorization document. They're good for 2 years. You're able to apply for them 6 months in advance, and then you're waiting 20 months. So you're at least before what I'm about to talk about, you were basically guaranteed to lose your ability to work lawfully while you're waiting for that extension. Recognizing this, recognizing the massive processing time, is the huge backlogs that developed, USCIS announced about 10 days ago or so that they were going to create this extension for folks in certain categories who have applied for renewals of their employment authorization documents. It doesn't help everybody. It's a huge help for the folks that it does apply to, but it's definitely just a band-aid and not a system-wide fix. But for certain categories of folks, and you apply to renew your employment authorization document, you were getting this receipt notice that said, okay, you're authorized to work for an additional 180 days. That 180 days still wasn't enough to get your renewal application, so they extended it now to be 540 days. It's a nice thing to get your renewal application in, and then you've got basically a year and a half of work authorization, which covers most of what that employment authorization document would cover. So this would be folks who, for example, have an adjustment of status application pending, and then for some reason their application is not processed in time and they have to file for a renewal of their employment authorization document, they would get this 540-day extension. Spouses of H-1Bs, so people in H-4 status, they're able to get this 540-day extension. Folks who applied for asylum and who have work authorization pursuant to that pending asylum application, they're able to get this extension. So really huge, extremely nice for those individuals who have qualified for this extension, but it's not for initial applications, so not a system-wide fix by any means. If you apply for work authorization right now pursuant to an adjustment of status application, I mean, you might have your green card before you ever got authorized to work prior to getting that green card. It's a bit obscene where we're at with EADs right now. I mean, we know it takes 12 minutes of time for the agency to look them over, to say, okay, you're good, and to approve it to have that card printed. So the fact that it's taking almost 2 years is unacceptable. And this is hopefully a way to kind of reduce the need for some of the folks to have their applications expedited and to be able to divert resources to these initial applications. So maybe we'll see these initial applications be approved faster. But yeah, overall, it's I guess, good news that I'm hoping means better news in the future, but not good news for everybody necessarily.
Yeah, that was my hope too, is that they will now put the renewal ones that have the automatic 540-day extension to the back of the pile and focus on the initial application so they can get through that backlog quickly. But we'll just have to wait and see if that actually pans out. I hope so, because this is by far one of the most frustrating parts of delays here, where people are in the US and just unable to work. I mean, what do you expect people to do? They've filed for their application and they're just going to sit there for a year, like 2 years, not working at all. I mean, it is so infuriating. But
I mean, I especially hear it in the employment-based adjustment of status context. People are like, the only reason I'm here is for my job. So why am I going to wait around, not able to work, when I could just go home and get a job there? So it's, I mean, we're losing talented people because of these backlogs as well.
Yeah.
So anyways, hopefully these backlogs are reduced, and this is a nice little step in that direction.
Mm-hmm. Okay, for my topic, completely unrelated, no kind of segue that I can do here, so I'm just going to jump into it. I have talked a lot about technology, the use of technology in immigration on these video thingies that we do each week, and I have a kind of another one of those. It's not so much technology. I mean, it is technology, but it's more just an overreach by ICE to surveil everybody in the country. And Georgetown Law just put out a new paper, a new research report that they published where they did an in-depth look at what ICE is doing, how they're surveilling everyone in the country, and is there anything that we can do to reel them back in. I don't think they have any really good answers for that part of it, but at least we can spread awareness and maybe hope to get some kind of thing going in Congress, something to protect Americans, but we'll see. So they mentioned that ICE has scanned the driver's license photos of 1 in 3 adults. Doesn't matter if you are an immigrant, if you were ever an immigrant, 1 in 3 adults have had their driver's license photos scanned. They have access to the driver's license data of 3 in 4 adults. They track the movements of drivers in cities that are homes to 75% of adults. So 75% of people live in the cities that they are tracking the movement of their cars. I don't know how they're doing it. I guess just seeing where vehicles are registered. But it doesn't matter. Again, if you're a U.S. citizen, if you've been a U.S. citizen for generations and generations, ICE is still tracking you because they just really want to catch people that are not you, I guess. And they can locate 3 in 4 adults. So again, 75% of adults, because they have access to their utility records. So ICE has access to a lot of records. So I'm going to mention the Department of Motor Vehicles. There have been ways that certain states have limited their access to the Department of Motor Vehicle records. So don't get too scared by me just saying that. But ICE has accessed DMV records, again, utility customer information, call records, child welfare records, credit headers, employment records, geolocation information records, healthcare records, housing records, and then, of course, your social media. ICE is looking at all of that and just keeping tabs on every single person that they can. In 16 states, including Colorado and Washington, D.C., people that have been undocumented have been allowed to apply for a driver's license. So when they apply for their driver's license, they're giving, their name, their date of birth, their addresses, and hundreds of thousands of people have done this to get a driver's license, even though they weren't allowed legal immigration status. And those records in many of those states have been turned over to ICE, and ICE can warrantlessly search through those records. There have been states that have limited ICE's ability to search through those records, including Colorado, Illinois, Maryland, Utah, Vermont, in Washington, those specific states have prohibited the DMV from complying with ICE's records requests, but all the other states that that have not specifically prohibited ICE from going through those records, they are just complying with ICE. ICE can do it without a warrant, like I said, and one of the reasons that's happening is because a lot of states don't know exactly what ICE is doing until it just comes out in one way or another. A lot of Congress people don't know what ICE is doing, how far they're reaching into the private personal records of people across the country until it just comes out one day. And I know that in 2019, there was a big leak that first revealed kind of the extent of ICE's reach into our information and into our privacy, and it upset a lot of Congress people, but there still hasn't been a full disclosure of what exactly ICE is doing, of all the information that they're accessing, even though it has come out in the past years that they are accessing stuff that we didn't know about before. And of course, this has effects on people. I mean, there's a chilling effect of people being able to get access to healthcare that they need, being able to get access to a driver's license. That in Colorado, a person can have no status and apply for a driver's license, but knowing that ICE has been looking at the driver's license records of other states, they might just drive without a license, and people driving without licenses, people not getting the healthcare that they need, people potentially, I mean, being afraid to communicate with police. Of course, there are U visas available for people that communicate with police, but the more that we have this shadowy presence of ICE looking at every single thing, the less likely people are going to engage with the legal system, engage with reporting crimes that would help their community. And so it brings down an entire community when we have this shadowy figure looking at us and preventing people or making people afraid to get the care that they need for not only themselves, but for the people around them. And I know for people that aren't really affected by this, maybe they don't have status, or maybe they do have status, rather. They're a U.S. citizen. They don't care. They're always like, well, I've done nothing wrong. I don't really care. You can look at everything you want. And I just am reminded of, for me, the way that I start to care about it is when I think of a person sitting in my house listening to every single conversation that I have. When it's an actual physical embodiment of a person there, you start to realize, oh, wait, actually, I do value my privacy more than I realize. And maybe I wouldn't like somebody here, even if I'm just talking about my favorite TV show or something. I don't want those conversations to be listened to by some random stranger. So I hope that, people start caring about this, not only because it affects, or because it's just creepy to have somebody listening to every single thing that you say, but because of the effects that it has on our community members, on our people without status that need to seek out medical care. They need to seek out help with the police. They need to take care of themselves and their children. And these overreaching hands from the ICE specters is just too much and too far, and we need to crack down on it. And I hope that we do, but we'll see if we do. That's my story. I don't know, just going into a lot of rambling there. So there you have it.
Being on a positive note there.
Positive no. I mean, we're talking about it. Like the fact that reports like this are being made, the more that we're aware of it, the more likely that changes will be made. And I hope and I believe that something will be done eventually to reel in these government agencies and the overreach of everything into our private lives. But we'll just have to wait and see. But it'll happen. Positive note, yes, it will. We just have to give it a little bit more time. Okay, well, I don't see any more questions. Delani thanked me. Yeah, you're welcome, Delani. And I guess that's it for today.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Wow, I'm in shock from your report. That's wow. Thank you, Ryan and Zach.
Yeah, no problem. Bye.